Did you shake hands?
Well, I cannot remember whether we shook hands on the day, but we spoke.
You smoke a peace pipe.
Not peace pipe, we spoke.
Do you consider General Spear a criminal?
From the evidence that I had picked up before the July 6th and what I've heard now, what Matlala told me about him is true.
And you still maintain that there can never be peace between you, as a police officer, and him, because he's a criminal?
Well, there was, at the time I made a statement of peace between a police officer and a criminal, not necessarily saying Spear per se. I can tell you now that there cannot be peace between me and General Spear.
Okay. Now let's take matters to the PKTT.
Yes, sir.
Amongst issues that were testified here by both the minister and General Spear was that amongst a lot of reason that has led to the directive of the 31st of December is a work study of 2019 that has enlightened the department to do away mostly with non-permanent structures. Hence, it led to the dissolution of the PKTT. Are you aware of the work study?
Well, when the minister came to display it here before the ad hoc committee, but as a senior manager in the police, I was never briefed about that work study.
Okay. Then amongst other things is the fact that it became too costly to run the PKTT. And amongst issues that were cost drivers was issues relating to overtimes, issues relating to subsistence and travel, issues relating to laundry, even laundry, issues relating to accommodation for members of the PKTT. Would you agree with such assertions?
Allegations were made and they've been disputed by the Chief Financial Officer of the South African Police Service that appeared before you. So it is not true.
Was part of what would have been testified before the committee is that this thing of some senior SAPS top management members appearing surprised with the 31st December letter is actually a fiction, because there would have been numerous meetings that sat between the ministry and the top management of SAPS, who actually work towards a plan for the dissolution of the political killings task team. So have you been part of those meetings? If not, are you aware of such meetings and all that?
Well, I was never in any of the meeting that sat and discussed the dissolution of the task team. Hence my effort to try and reach out to the minister in January as soon as I learned of the letter, which was not successful. I've been in the meetings where the minister has been chairing. One significant meeting that drew my attention, and I started because of the past experience, where I started questioning the motive behind, was a meeting that was held in Pretoria at Kivitsgrond. That meeting, when it was sanctioned, I think it was a Friday in November somewhere, 21, if I'm not mistaken, the date. I was in KZN with the Minister of Public Works. There was a event there at ICC. The minister was there. When that meeting ended, the minister then spoke about this meeting that was going to be in Pretoria. And I told him I'm not going to attend. And he pleaded with me that I must come. And I said, no, but I need to be in engagement in Pietermaritzburg. Then I cannot go there. I was summoned to be in Maritzburg. Otherwise, I'm going to have a problem. So he then asked me to negotiate with those people not to attend. And I still said to him, but minister, you want all the generals there, but the two generals are in China. And I think they're coming back on Thursday or Friday. They won't be able to attend the meeting. Then he says, no, well, he's going to check. And he came back to me and said, yeah, no. The two generals are landing on Thursday, and on Friday, they're going to be there in the meeting. So I then also got the permission to be excused in the meeting I was supposed to attend. I went to Pretoria because all the generals and the police were invited. So we went to Kivitsgrond. The surprise that happened at Kivitsgrond is that other generals were there, where the minister was there. When General Kumalo walked in, Next thing, the instruction was all those generals from head office are not needed in that meeting. They were excused. He is one of them. They had left their offices, canceled their diaries because of this invitation. When they arrived there, I think because of the presence of Kumalo, things changed. So they were all kicked out. It was only the minister, the national his deputy, the national commissioner, head of DPCI, ourselves as provincial commissioners, and the deputies that were there. Only. But what was discussed in the meeting that was of concern? We were given a lecture by Vusi Pikoli, who's a legal advisor of the minister. He gave us a lecture about the Constitution, about the Act, that we, for the past 30 years, we've been enforcing. He was lecturing us about it. The powers of the minister, this. Because I had been part of these transitions in the police over time, I could tell that something is coming. I concluded there that something is coming out of this. And I'm going to invite the ad hoc committee to invite the DG, the Director General, who's responsible legally that you have created a structure of government to oversee and guide the Minister of Police in the right thing. And there's a DG at the Civilian Secretariat, Mr. Sbui. In all what you're talking about, there is no DG in part being involved, being consulted, being engaged, advice that he gives. There's nothing. But you go to the Police Act, you find the Civilian Secretariat supposed to do a certain functions. Minister has not been engaged in them, including the letter of December. That DG doesn't know about the letter. And yet legally is appointed to give this advice to the minister. But the only person was directing the minister was Advocate Pikoli. So that lecture, that meeting indicated to me there's something coming. But beyond that meeting, I don't know, up until eventually the letter came out, which itself was not sent to me.
So the lecture did not indicate that it's preparing for the dissolution of task teams or a task team.
No, it didn't. The emphasis on that letter was to remind us about the powers of the minister. That was the point that we were driving. The minister has the powers. The section of the Constitution gives the minister powers. This is the powers of the minister. These are powers of the minister. So at all time, that was a message that was cutting across. That's why I could conclude that I was the senior manager in the police from 2012, or from 2011, actually. So I've seen it all. I could read that something big is coming out of this, although I did not know what it is. So later, when the letter came out, I then started wondering that could it be the build-up to this?
So you're also not part of the 1st November and the 22nd November 2024 meetings?
No, I was not there.
You're also not part of the meetings that were dealing with the organizational structure of SAPS?
Honorable Chair and members, the disease that we have in the South African Police Service, again, is that the Police Act gives the powers to the National Commissioner to organize the service, not the minister. So for the minister coming here and say he was part of the structural thing, he gives himself powers that he doesn't have. So the discussion they were having, I was not part of. And I'm sure all the provincial commissioners that are there in terms of the Constitution, they were not invited to be part of it. The only engagement we've ever had regarding the new structure, which the minister was referring to, is when we invited in Pretoria the Board of Commissioners. The person who was presiding over the meeting was Gerald Musikiti, if I'm not mistaken, with CB sitting on the high table. The rest of us were in that conference. What was presented in that meeting was the new structure. A new structure that my comment was, we cannot just keep on restructuring without applying our minds. You created division because you want to please someone. A lieutenant general, you're going to pay 2 million rand salary plus the vehicles that you must have, plus the staff in the office. The cost of one lieutenant general, it's a lot of money. So you can't keep on creating structures, blocks that are not well informed. So that was engagement. I'm sure you can find minutes of that. That is the only time where we engage on the structure. But we said, in any way, we are talking about the structure. The only National Commission has the powers. The structure presented to us is already signed. So we are just discussing after the fact. We can't do anything about it. So what led into that structure being the blocks is put and the National Commission signing was preceded by a meeting with the minister, we were not part of it, at least provincial commissioners, I can speak on their behalf.
Okay. Now, the evidence leader asked you about a funeral of Mandla, whom you regarded as your friend and a brother. Were you very close to Mr. Mandla Mahlangu?
I was not very close to Mandla Mahlangu, but I was close to his brother, his elder brother. I happened then to get to know Mandla, but to the extent that we can say we're close, not much.
Were you the first?
For a typical example, when I go to a soccer stadium, I'll go with his brother, not him.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's not a person that I was having that relationship, but I knew him because of his brother.
Were you the first one or amongst the first people who arrived at the crime scene when he was shot dead?
I will not remember exactly who was there, but to the extent that the brother called me to go to the crime scene, so someone might have have witnessed the murder and contacted the brother. And for me to travel from Montana to get to that plot, surely there might have been people in there. I cannot remember because it's not what is in my head. But definitely there will have been people in there. But who it was, what I know, his brother was not there because he's the one who asked me to come clean early.
But do you understand this insinuation in that statement, without having been expressly said, is that it may happen that you would have known about that prior it happened, hence you were amongst the first people, if not the first person to arrive at the crime scene. And it goes further when it is testified by Mr. McBride that time Kwanazi was even in HR. So an insinuation that people would have been expected to arrive earlier are the police officers on duty in preventing crime. So do you understand that kind of insinuation?
Definitely, I do understand. I think that's why I kept on saying, honorable members, that I think that case needs to be started afresh. There are things that are not being brought into the open about that case. I don't believe that everything that was done to close that case was justified. That case might need to be reopened. Some things that are hidden in that docket. I'm grateful for the fact that, as we say, I was at HR and other places, minding my business in Montana. The person that mobilized me to get there is a brother. Had he not called me and give me the location, I would not have gone there. Even his house, Mandla Mahlangu, where eventually I ended up, was his brother that took me to the house. Because otherwise I did not know. I was always meeting him at the brother's house in Central. That's where I was always meeting him, not where Mandla's house was. So Mr. McBride making an insinuation that goes all the way to me not attending the funeral. At least from my side, the brother knows everything and he was there and he saw me, not even me alone, with my wife there. So that's the advantage that at least I have. So for the fact that he's making those statements, it makes me suspect that perhaps Mandla Mahlangu's murder might involve people that he was close to.
Another insinuation in respect to Mandla Mahlangu's murder is that Mandla Mahlangu deposed an affidavit to IPID that implicates you of having a hand in trying to sabotage the case against General Pahlan. And he was later after that killed. Another insinuation in this assertion, which was also said by Mr. McBride, is that there would have been a dialectical relationship between the deposed, the deponent, or the statement deposed to IPID against you and the murder of Mandla Mahlangu. Do you understand that insinuation as well?
I do very well.
What is your take on it?
Oh, the question is why to date Mkhwanazi has never even at least been brought to be questioned about that by a person who claims to have led the investigation and is still part of the security cluster. Why to date he has never been caught? So for what he's saying, if there was a statement, might have been fabricated. If there is a statement, perhaps there's not even a statement for that matter. But it doesn't surprise me because one, I get the information now about why Crime Intelligence is not finalizing my security clearance. One of the things I mentioned in that reason is that there is a case docket open in Pretoria against Pahlan and his wife and someone else. where I'm implicated in it. It is that docket that makes crime intelligence not to issue me with a security clearance. That is many years back. To date, nobody's ever come to me to ask me questions. So it might have been maybe the case does exist, maybe there was a statement in there that was fabricated, but I've never been involved with anything on Patlane. Patlane was the acting national commissioner at the time. He became my boss. But other than that, we will only meet at the gym in Montana. That's all I knew about him. No other relationship.
Lastly, did you submit the video or the record of your meeting with Mr. Matlala and General Sanona to the evidence leaders?
No, I did not.
Can you please assist us with that?
I will have to speak to the investigation team because when we conducted that, it was part of the criminal investigations that we're busy with.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. I will allow my colleagues to pursue where I might have left. Thank you.